So I want to talk today about sort of how the law actually works, and how it comes to pass that people get in the situation where they start talking about uh, why something is, why it's not, how it's legal, how it's not legal. So I was reading the New York Times this morning, and I came across something that mentioned Fort Sumter. So I decided, like a lot of times, just to go read up on it, because I remember that was sort of like the beginning of the Civil War in the United States. And what happened is the South basically attacked this fort where 85 soldiers from the Union had holed up, basically, during the lead up to the cessation of North Carolina. Actually, I think it might have been after the cessation of North Carolina. And in any case, it somehow ended up in a situation where I was trying to figure out, what the precedent was for states seceding from the Union and what the legal position was. And one of the things that I discovered is that the South believed they had the legal right to secede from the Union, and the North believed that they did not have the legal right to secede from the Union, which calls into question the whole idea of what is legal, what is not legal. And as it turns out, the authority in the United States prior to the Civil War was very thin, that the reason why people could not secede from the Union was not really based upon anything. There's nothing really in the Constitution or anywhere that says states can't secede from the Union. And afterwards, when Texas tried to secede from the Union, I think in 1869, the Supreme Court decided that there was some language. I think they actually used the phrase "more perfect union" or something like that to legitimate the reason why there was no right of a state to secede from the Union. And this is obviously a pretty thin pretext. And so, as it turns out, the only real reason why states cannot secede from the Union anymore is because the Union won the Civil War. And this is in line with a very long history of historical analysis in which, the victors write history and the vanquished do not. And this is precisely what happened here, which is what made it as a factual matter that states cannot secede from the Union is the fact that the Union won the war. And after the war, the Union then enacted the 14th Amendment and demanded that the states who had seceded from the Union and were currently under occupation by the Union Army either sign off on the 14th Amendment or basically remain, occupied states, occupied territory. And so, of course, the states eventually signed off on the 14th Amendment, which is one of the reasons why now there is obviously much better authority for the ability of the Union to prevent states from seceding from the Union. And so this is obviously the real truth behind of what really happens in the law. And really in my job on a daily basis, what happens is that there's this thin veneer of what is legal, and then there's power, and when you go into court, the rich people win and the poor people lose. The rich people use their money, the poor people don't have the money, and so there's sort of this dance around that subject, and attorneys do their best and they get results sometimes, other times they don't. But there's an ancient history behind it. Having just returned from Greece, I think I can give another example of that, how old that is, which is Thucydides wrote in his History of the Peloponnesian War, the dialogues from the people of, I think, Melios, they're called the Melios or Melian dialogues, where the Athenians came to the island of Melos, whatever, with, thousands of ships and soldiers. They were in the middle of a war, and the people of Melos, where they were an island, refused to be part of the war. They said, we're going to be neutral, and the Athenians came to them and surrounded them and said, look, here's the deal. You can either, join us, or we have a problem, and the people of Melos, and this is all in the dialogues, between that was, written by Thucydides. And really the people of Melos, they said, first of all, we're right, you're wrong. You don't have the right to do this. You shouldn't do this to us. We can be friends. We want to be part of your war. And the Athenians said, well, it's a problem for us because we're having this war, and you're either helping us, you're either with us, or you're against us. And the people of Melos said, well, the gods don't agree with you. And the Athenians were like, we don't care if the gods agree with us or not, because we're not on equal footing here. We have all the power, you have none. You have no ability to be able to argue with us. And at the end of the day, the people of Melos said, and not only that, the Spartans might come and help us. And so they said, basically, piss off. And so the Athenians attacked, and there was a fight, and the people of the island tried to fight back, and eventually they lost. And this is the part that's interesting, because we're always talking about how great the Greeks are and that the birthplace of the cradle of civilization. But the Athenians, what they did was they executed every single adult male on the island and sold all the women and children into slavery. And that was how it played out. And there was actually a very famous statement. I don't remember the exact words, and it doesn't really matter, but basically, it was a statement that, power at the end of the day is the thing that matters. And interesting to know that Stephen Miller recently made some quote like that about a month or two ago, where he talked about the iron laws of men or some bullshit, and so this is an ancient thread that is being pulled on here, and it's exactly what's happening with the Trump administration. Is they're just using power, and their followers understand this, and their followers back them because they understand that they're simply power, and everything else is just window dressing, And so it is fascinating when you look at the way the law works, and even at my lowly level, at the low level that I operate at, it's really the same thing, which is the power and control at the end of the day is really what runs things. And then it's all sort of like, in a way, window dressing, dressed up. There's all of this sort of bullshit that goes back and forth about what's right or wrong, what's fair, what's not fair. And at the end of the day, everybody's working backwards from the conclusion and trying to find a way to legitimate what it is that their goal is and what their role is.